History remembers Queen Victoria as one of the greatest rulers Britain had ever known. She governed a powerful empire and became a symbol of strength, stability, and duty. But behind the royal crown she was also a mother with hopes, dreams, and fears for her family. On the 9th of November 1841, Queen Victoria gave birth to her first son, Prince Albert Edward. The palace celebrated with great joy because Britain finally had a male heir to the throne. The young prince was lovingly called Bertie by his family. From the day he was born, everyone believed he would one day become king. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert wanted their son to become the perfect future monarch. They believed a king should be intelligent, disciplined, honest, and devoted to serving the nation. Prince Albert took a special interest in Bertie's education. He carefully planned every lesson, believing that knowledge and discipline were the foundation of great leadership. The young prince studied history, languages, mathematics, politics, religion, and military subjects. The schedule was strict and demanding. Every hour of the day was carefully organized. There was little time for play or adventure. But Bertie was very different from his parents. He enjoyed sports, horse riding, music, and spending time with friends. He learned better through conversation and real-life experiences than through long hours of formal study. The more his parents increased the pressure, the more difficult learning became for him. Prince Albert worried that his son would never be fully prepared for the responsibilities of the crown. Queen Victoria also became concerned. She deeply loved her son but often felt disappointed when he failed to meet the high expectations she had imagined for the future king. As Bertie grew older, comparisons with his brilliant father became impossible to avoid. Prince Albert was admired across Europe for his intelligence and vision. Many people expected the young prince to become exactly the same. But Bertie had his own personality. He was warm, friendly, humorous, and naturally comfortable with ordinary people. Wherever he went, people enjoyed his company. He could make strangers feel welcome within moments. Although these qualities made him popular, they were often overlooked inside the palace. His parents focused more on academic achievement than on the personal qualities that would later help him become a successful king. As the years passed, a quiet distance slowly began to grow between Queen Victoria and her eldest son. Both loved each other deeply, but neither truly understood the other. Victoria believed she was preparing a future king. Bertie believed he could never become the son his parents wanted him to be. Neither of them knew that their relationship would soon face a tragedy that would change both their lives forever. The loss that was about to strike the royal family would reshape the future of the British crown and leave a mark that history would never forget. The year 1861 changed the British royal family forever. Prince Albert, who had guided Queen Victoria and carefully prepared Bertie for his future, suddenly became seriously ill. The palace grew silent as doctors came and went, hoping his condition would improve. Queen Victoria refused to leave her husband's side. She believed he would recover and once again become the strength behind the crown. At the same time, Prince Albert was deeply worried about his eldest son. He still hoped Bertie would become a responsible future king and often encouraged him to take his duties more seriously. Only a short time later, tragedy struck. On the 14th of December 1861, Prince Albert passed away. His death shattered Queen Victoria's world. She lost not only her husband but also her closest advisor and greatest companion. From that day forward, everything inside Buckingham Palace changed. Queen Victoria entered a long period of mourning. She dressed in black and withdrew from much of public life. The palace became quieter than ever before. As she struggled with grief, Queen Victoria found it difficult to separate her sorrow from her concerns about Bertie. She feared that he was not yet ready to carry the responsibilities of the monarchy. Because of this, she trusted him with very little involvement in the affairs of government. Bertie also mourned the loss of his father. He had admired Prince Albert, even though he sometimes felt overwhelmed by the expectations placed upon him. Now the one person who might have guided him into adulthood was gone. The distance between mother and son slowly became greater. Queen Victoria believed she was protecting the crown by keeping Bertie away from important decisions. Bertie believed his own mother had little confidence in him. Despite the tension, he continued to carry out royal ceremonies, travel across Britain, and represent the royal family whenever he was asked. During these journeys, something unexpected happened. The public welcomed him warmly. People admired his friendly nature, his easy conversations, and his ability to make everyone feel comfortable. While many inside the palace questioned his abilities, ordinary citizens began to see a future king who understood people. Queen Victoria noticed his growing popularity but remained cautious. She believed experience alone was not enough to prepare someone for the throne. As the years passed, the gap between mother and son remained. Neither realized that time would eventually force them to face the future together, and that Bertie would one day have to prove he was capable of leading the nation after the end of Queen Victoria's remarkable reign. As the years passed, Prince Albert Edward became one of the most recognized members of the British royal family. Although Queen Victoria continued to keep him away from the highest decisions of government, Bertie refused to give up his sense of duty. He understood that one day the crown would become his responsibility. Across Britain and Europe, he represented the royal family at ceremonies, public events, and diplomatic visits. Wherever he traveled, large crowds gathered to welcome him. Unlike many members of the royal family, Bertie spoke easily with people from every background. Soldiers, workers, merchants, artists, and political leaders all found him warm, friendly, and approachable. His natural charm made him one of the most popular royal figures of his generation. He believed that listening to people was just as important as speaking to them. During his journeys, he carefully observed how Britain was changing. Factories were growing, cities were expanding, and new inventions were transforming everyday life. He realized that the monarchy also needed to understand the modern world. While Queen Victoria preferred tradition, Bertie believed the royal family should be seen more often by the public. His ideas were different from those of his mother, but they came from a sincere desire to strengthen the crown. Foreign rulers welcomed him with respect because he had built friendships across Europe. His diplomatic visits helped improve relationships between Britain and many other nations. Many newspapers praised his confidence, kindness, and ability to connect with ordinary citizens. Yet despite his success, Queen Victoria remained careful. She still believed that the responsibilities of government required greater experience and discipline. Important state papers continued to pass through her hands, while Bertie waited patiently for the opportunity to prove himself. At times he wondered whether he would ever earn his mother's complete trust. Even so, he never stopped preparing for the future. He studied constitutional matters, met experienced political leaders, and learned from every official duty he performed. Slowly, the young prince, who had once struggled under enormous expectations, began to grow into a thoughtful and capable heir. Neither Queen Victoria nor Bertie realized that the Victorian era was approaching its final chapter. Soon the nation would witness the end of one remarkable reign and the beginning of another. The future king, who had spent almost his entire life waiting, would finally receive the crown that had seemed so distant for so many years. The final years of Queen Victoria's reign marked the end of an extraordinary era in British history. For more than 60 years she had ruled the British Empire through times of great change. Railways stretched across the country. Factories transformed industry. The empire expanded across continents. Around the world, Queen Victoria had become a symbol of stability and duty. Inside the palace, however, time was beginning to take its toll. The Queen was now elderly and her health was slowly declining. Walking became more difficult and public appearances became less frequent. Even so, she continued to read government papers, meet her ministers, and carry out her constitutional responsibilities. Prince Albert Edward remained patient. For decades he had waited as heir to the throne longer than any previous Prince of Wales. He had learned valuable lessons through years of public service, diplomatic visits, and royal ceremonies. The young prince, who had once struggled under impossible expectations, had matured into a confident and experienced leader. Although Queen Victoria rarely spoke openly about it, she gradually recognized that Bertie had changed. He had earned the respect of political leaders, foreign monarchs, and the British public. The distance that had once separated mother and son slowly began to soften. While they never shared the close relationship Victoria had enjoyed with Prince Albert, they developed a quiet understanding built on years of shared duty. As the 19th century came to an end, Britain prepared to enter a new century. No one could imagine the nation without Queen Victoria. She had become the living symbol of an entire age. Then in January 1901, the nation received heartbreaking news. Queen Victoria had passed away at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight. Across Britain, church bells rang in mourning. Flags were lowered. Thousands gathered in silence to honor the woman who had ruled for more than 6 decades. For Bertie, the moment was filled with both sorrow and responsibility. He had lost his mother. At the same time, the crown he had waited for throughout his entire life now rested upon his head. The prince who had spent so many years living in the shadow of Queen Victoria was about to step into history as King Edward VII. Many wondered whether he could live up to the remarkable legacy his mother had left behind. The answer would soon surprise Britain and the world. When Queen Victoria passed away in 1901, the Victorian era came to an end. For more than 60 years Britain had known only one monarch. Now the crown belonged to King Edward VII. Many people were uncertain about the future. Some believed that after such a long and successful reign no one could continue the legacy of Queen Victoria. Others questioned whether Bertie, who had spent most of his life waiting, would be ready to rule. King Edward VII understood these doubts. He knew that he could never replace his mother. Instead, he decided to lead Britain in his own way. From the very beginning of his reign, he brought new energy to the monarchy. He appeared more often in public. He welcomed foreign leaders with warmth and confidence. His natural ability to build friendships helped strengthen Britain's relationships across Europe. Because of his successful diplomacy, many historians later called him the peacemaker. He believed that a modern king should be seen by the people and should represent Britain with dignity, kindness, and confidence. The experience he had gained during decades as Prince of Wales now became one of his greatest strengths. Although his reign was much shorter than Queen Victoria's, it left a lasting mark on British history. The monarchy entered the 20th century with renewed confidence while still respecting the traditions that Queen Victoria had protected throughout her life. With time, historians looked back at both mother and son with greater understanding. Queen Victoria had dedicated her life to duty, stability, and the British Empire. King Edward VII brought openness, diplomacy, and a more modern image to the crown. Their different personalities once created distance between them. Yet together they shaped two remarkable chapters of British history. One built the greatest empire of the age. The other prepared the monarchy for a new century. Today, visitors from around the world continue to walk through Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, and the royal landmarks connected with their lives. Their story reminds us that history is not shaped only by victories and crowns. It is also shaped by families' expectations, sacrifice, forgiveness, and the passage of time. The relationship between Queen Victoria and King Edward VII was never perfect. But together they transformed the British crown and left a legacy that continues to inspire historians and royal enthusiasts across the world.